to our creature feature presentation. Today we have a very special organization here with us today. Please help me on welcoming Steve Wastel and Paul Picara and the whole Apex Protection Project team.
Thank you guys. Did everybody hear us in here? Yeah?
You guys let us know if we get too quiet. We'll try to use our stage voices for you. We are Apex Protection Project. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting wolves and wolf dogs through education, rescue, and advocacy. And we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves today.
So before we start, we want to play something for you. We had a little bit of an issue with the sound today, so it's a little quiet. So we just have to be quiet for a moment to hear it. It's not as loud as we would normally play it. Wait for it.
Downstairs.
I hear it.
It'll get louder. Imagine this very loud. There you go.
What was that? Yes, what were they doing? The howl. It's literally one of the most iconic sounds in nature, and it's a sound that not many humans are lucky enough to hear once in their lifetime.
But we are really lucky because that's our alarm every morning at 5 a.m. And it's much louder than that. And they keep howling and howling and howling until we stick our heads out the door and say good morning to each of them individually. It's like the Waltons, like good morning Neo.
Good morning, Kona.
Good morning Strider.
Good morning, Rick.
And it goes on and on. There's 21 of them, so it takes us a moment. And as soon as we said hello to everybody, they go back to sleep. And so now we're up so we can get our coffee and get our day going. And yeah, that's our morning every single morning. So we never really planned on living in the middle of nowhere with a pack of wolves, but life somehow had other plans for us.
So today we are going to tell you a little bit of our story about our pack and what we do. Today we want to introduce to you some very special guests with us. We have two of our top ambassadors, and like Steve said, we do have 21 residents. Today we have Thor, and Thor is being handled by Lee, and we also have hiding behind the chalkboard, Rama, and Rama is being handled by Oksana. Steve is going to tell you a little more about these guys in a minute. Oh yeah, we also have our spotters, because handling these guys is not an easy one-person job most of the time. We have Dove spotting with us today, and we also have Stacy spotting and as our photographer today, and we have Kristen right next to her, and Omer.
These are all our volunteers. We're pretty much all volunteer run. We have a couple of staff members, and we've actually had 4 students from this college as interns over the years, which has been really amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about what we do, why we do it. Of course, all of these guys on our property are rescued from the exotic pet trade. You know, everybody wants to be Jon Snow, right? Walking down the street with their wolf. And unfortunately, they buy them, and about a year later, they realize their wolf doesn't want to walk down the street. Their wolf doesn't want to meet their friends. It doesn't like flags or cars or noises. And they're very, very skittish, and contrary to popular belief, they're afraid of everything most of the time. We have wolves and wolf dogs. We have from 7% wolf to 100% wolf and everything in between. Most of our guys are what they call high content wolf dogs, meaning they're in the 80s and 90%, which basically makes them a wolf. And so they behave like a wolf. and people buy them as a pet thinking, you know, maybe they'll act like a dog, and once in a while they get really lucky, but about 70% of the time they don't. And, you know, they give them up for various reasons. They're guarding their food, they're killing the next door neighbor's cats, they're howling at night. You know, they're doing wolf stuff. And people can't really handle that eventually, and so they end up dumping them in the pound, or they call us, or even worse, they tie them up in the backyard and kind of leave them out there. And so when we get them, they're usually 1 to 2 years old, and they need a lot of rehab and a lot of work. They've spent their lives with humans, and so we bring them into our pack, and we try and integrate them into our pack as much as we can, and the pack actually heals the pack, which is amazing to watch, and we'll talk a little bit about that further on.
So obviously rescue is a big part of what we do. The other facets that we do in our organization do involve education. Education is so very important to us, mainly because of the stigma attached to wolves. You know, most of us were, you know, born hearing fairy tales where immediately we were learning that these animals are dangerous and scary and aggressive, where they actually aren't. And they're incredibly important to the ecosystem. So that's our job, to help the public basically understand this, because we also do advocacy for wolves in the wild. Wolves in the wild right now, you guys may know or may not know, but they're being slaughtered to extinction across our country, and we are fighting legal battles most of the time through our advocacy to try and prevent that from happening.
So we have a short video here that we'd like to play for you. It's about 3 minutes long. It's actually a little dated. We have a lot more pack members now, but it will give you an idea of who we are and what we do. but she thinks she's a wolf. She was raised by wolves. She howls pretty well. We don't tell her it's terrible, but you know, and she actually raised some of these guys, which is interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about taboo and talk a little bit about the myth of an alpha, and in the process tell you our story and how we ended up where we are and what we're doing. If you come to our ranch, we do hikes with the pack and dinners with the pack. It's one of the ways that we raise money, because we do free school presentations. All of our rescues we pay for. So obviously there's ways of making money, and one of those is donations, and the other one is doing events. And so we have a very intimate experience for 6 to 12 people. They can come to the ranch, they can hike with the pack. We've got half of our pack off leash, which I think I'm right in saying that I don't think any other sanctuary in the country actually hikes their rescues off leash. It takes us a long while and a lot of work, but we try to give them the freedom, as much freedom as we can, you know, when we can, so they get to run and be free, and most of the time they stay with us. All the time they stay with us, but once in a while they see a rabbit, and that's kind of tricky. So if you came to Apex for a hike, the first thing we do is we stand at Taboo's statue, and we talk about taboo, because taboo is the reason that we do what we do. She's why we do what we do. And we talk about what the alpha, she was the alpha of the Apex pack. And most people think of, especially in America, the alpha as one being male and two being large and dominant and big and strong. And that's actually completely wrong. The alphas are just mom and dad. And in fact, mom is the one that rules the pack, just kind of like in the human family. We just think we rule the pack, but mom does. We have to go along with it, right? So taboo, if you came on a hike with us, taboo would always be in the back. She would always follow and make you a part of her pack. And back in the day, or even now, there's one of the most famous wolf biologists. His name is Dr. David Nish. And he wrote a book a long time ago using the term alpha a lot. And he felt like he misrepresented wolves in that book, because alpha indicates that they're the top dog. They fight their way to the top, and that's not what they are. So now he spent a lot of time trying to get that book out of print. And every time we saw him present, he really asked all the biologists to please start calling them mom and dad, please start calling them the breeding pair, because alpha is not really the way to describe. But taboo really essentially became the mom of the Apex pack. And back in the day, a lot of the biologists, first wolf biologists, a lot of them were male, a lot of them came out of the military, and sometimes they would see the female in the back and the big male in the front and assume that she was subordinate to him. But what does a good mother do? A good mother watches over her pack. A good mother, a good leader, makes sure she can see her team, right? And that's what Taboo would do with every single guest that came to Apex. She would always be in the back. If you were the slowest, she would come up behind you and give you a little nudge up the butt. And that nudge actually changed so many people's lives, because they knew that this creature was taking them into her world and making them a part of their pack for that moment. It was a really special time. We rescued Taboo. She was 1.5 years. She was tied up in a backyard for about 1.5 years. Not because the people were particularly cruel, but because they were afraid to take her out. She was so big and so strong, and she had what's called fear aggression. And fear aggression meaning she was on a leash, she couldn't run, so she tried to attack. Not with people, but with any other dog. So they just kept her in the backyard. Their house got foreclosed on, and Paula and I were volunteers at another wolf rescue at the time, and she was our first rescue. We went out there and we found her and we brought her back to the sanctuary, and she had no friends. She wanted to attack every other wolf dog she saw, she wanted to attack them. So we never planned on living in the middle of nowhere with a pack of wolves. All we wanted to do was find Taboo a friend. So we went on this mission to study with different people, and we studied with some so-called experts from TV, and they charged us like $500 an hour to tell us basically lock her up in a cage and keep her away from children. But we didn't believe that. We knew there was something special about this creature, and she just was afraid of the world. So we read and we learned, and we started studying wolf behavior. We started studying wolf dogs, and we absorbed as much information as we could. And rather than avoiding other dogs, we went to a place called Runyon Canyon, if you know it, in Hollywood, where everybody goes with their dog, right? And back then, they were all on leash. And so we would take Taboo every single morning at 9 o'clock, 7 days a week, and she would be trying to get to every dog. And Paula would walk in front and say, she'd be like, we're working with her, she was tied up in the backyard, you know, she's going to be okay, he's got her on the leash, and people thought we were crazy, right? And this went on for a little while, but after a couple of months, people started rooting for her. They were like, hey, Boo, how's Boo doing? You know, can Boo meet Buffy? And we're like, no, Boo will eat Buffy. This went on for a while, and one time I said to Paula, one day, Taboo will walk through Runyon Canyon off leash. And we both laughed. Never going to happen, right? We figured, and she moved into our one-bedroom apartment with us. We actually adopted her. Not a smart thing to do, guys. One-bedroom apartment in Sherman Oaks, and we had a chain link fence built into the side of the kitchen so she couldn't get to the cats that lived in the bedroom now, and the bedroom door was closed, and one of us had to sleep on a couch in the living room while the other one slept in the bedrooms because she would try to jump through the window because we're on the ground floor and dogs would walk by. So we had to board up the windows. We had babysitters when we went to work, but they couldn't walk her because she was too aggressive. This went on for about a year and a half. A year and a half later, she was going to dog parks. She was sleeping with the cats. Paula and I finally got to sleep in the same bed together, and then we got kicked out of our apartment for having a wolf. So they told us get rid of her or move out. We weren't going to get rid of her, so we moved to this place that we are now in Acton, California, and all of a sudden people kind of knew about our story and what we'd done with Taboo, and they started bringing us their wolf dogs, and we were on a rental property, and we just started building enclosures, and one day the landlord came, and he went, what's this? And we were like, wolf rescue? And he stood there for what seemed like an hour, but it was probably like 2 seconds really, but he looked around and he was like, cool. He just said no more than 8.
Which is why we have 21.
Yeah. Not a very good counter. He's a really nice man. But so every creature that came to Apex, the first one was Kona. And when Kona came, he was 14 months old and he was just a wild thing. But what we realized was Taboo taught him everything that we taught her, or she taught us, really. She taught him in 2 months. He was off leash. He was eating nicely. He was playing gently. We could trust him with her. He followed her everywhere and did everything. And then Thor and his brother Loki came along at 3.5 weeks old, and they both took them under their wing, and they raised them like a wild wolf pack would raise pups, and they taught them everything. And so slowly but surely we watched these creatures teaching each other and learning from each other. And then so Taboo would welcome every new rescue that came to Apex. She would welcome and take under her wing. She never had to raise her voice. She never had to fight them. She never had to growl at them. She just gave them that mama look, and they did everything she wanted. And so she was our teacher, and she was our leader, or their leader. And then 4 years ago, we took her for a hike one day, and we came back, and something was wrong with her. She had some kind of tummy ache. She never refused food. So we rushed her to the vet, and she went in, and she ended up going into surgery, and she didn't make it. Sorry. I tell the story a million times, and it still kills me. She didn't make it. And we came home, and the pack didn't know what had happened to her, so we rushed her out in the middle of the night. And so everybody was wondering where she'd gone, and everything fell apart. The howl was off. Nobody knew. I mean, technically, we are all the leaders, the alphas, the parents. But amongst themselves, they have their own hierarchy, and that was what made this pack function. And it just fell apart, and everybody didn't know who the leader was anymore. And Loki, Thor's brother, he always wanted a shot at the title. He always wanted to be the boss of somebody since he was a puppy, so he marched around picking on everybody. You may worship me, and starting fights with different pack members. And unfortunately, he's not a very good fighter. So it didn't work out well for him, and he was kind of embarrassed most of the time, so it wasn't good for him. And eventually, the pack chose their own leader, and that happened to be Thor. And the reason that they chose him, and literally chose him, was because he was like Taboo. He's benevolent, he's loving, he doesn't have to raise his voice, he teaches the young ones, he's patient. So now he has become the glue that holds everything together again. And it's a really, really beautiful thing to see. He teaches the young ones, and someone's upstaging me right now, but that's okay. How do I compete with that, right? He teaches the young ones, he works with all of them. But his brother Loki, don't feel sorry for him, because he found his calling. In a wolf pack, the nanny is a really important job in the wild. And we rescued 7 puppies a couple years ago, and Loki took them under his wing and became the nanny. And all of a sudden he had this purpose in life, and instead of being a bully all of a sudden, he started being this like sweet, loving, he worked with them, he cleaned them, he played with them, he marched around like Mother Duck, and they all followed him everywhere. He's so proud of himself. So he has his own little pack now. He has the Loki pack. And he's kind of second in command now to Thor. He's learned this responsibility, and watching them, it's so much like watching a human family, you know, when a young child maybe loses someone and ends up having to be the caretaker of the family. That's what happened with Loki, and he found this responsibility. So that is our story and our pack.
And that has led us to do everything possible in our lives, because our vision is that future generations like you guys live in a world where the wolf and all species are highly valued, protected, and respected for, first of all, the rightful place they hold on this earth, the balancing of its ecosystems, and of course for the beautiful lessons they offer humanity. This is a picture of most of our pack. Our pack has grown fairly quickly in the last year or so. So there are a few members missing here, but this gives you an idea of our family back home. And now we'd like to open up the floor for questions, if you guys have any. Yes?
So the Thor is the one leading the pack now. What do they do while he's here right now? How do they get on without him or there?
It's interesting because, you know, when you think about a sanctuary environment, and they've all come from different places in the country, and they all came, most of them as young adults, so already having a sense of self. They do have to still live in enclosures, and not all of them can truly get along. But what's kind of remarkable is they still acknowledge that they are a unit. So they howl together. And if there's a squabble over here, you know, Kona, who's 10 now, he will start the howl, and what that is for. He'll get the whole pack howling, and what that will do is kind of, in all honesty, it distracts the two who are having a squabble, and they go, oh, we're howling. And they howl, and howl, and howl. And then when the howl is over, they kind of go, what were we doing? Oh, okay. So you know, they do look out for each other in that way. So we generally will put male, female. You know, wolves are very, very similar to us. We like to say that as, you know, as humans biologically, we're closer to primates, other primates, obviously, but socially, we are actually closer to wolves than any other species on the planet. So if you think about how we kind of relate together, you know, they're really hardwired for family. So even though they're spayed and neutered, obviously, because we don't want to contribute to the problem, they still need that companionship. So we have a few power couples at our sanctuary who met at Apex. We like to consider ourselves amazing wolf matchmakers. And so they do live in separate enclosures. But when he's able to go into every enclosure, and they all really look up to him. So it's a little different than a family of wolves in the wild, but in certain ways it's pretty remarkable considering the circumstances. So when he's out, they're fine.
The biggest pack we can put together is 7 right now, and all of them actually can be off leash together, which is pretty cool. Like up in the hill. But yeah, we have different packs that we're constantly trying to build different packs just for enrichment, so they have new friends to play with. But it takes time, as Paula said, because of that. But he is kind of the glue. He helps because he gets along with all of them. Yes.
What's your recall when you have them on leash?
What's what?
The recall?
The recall, the ones that are off leash is absolutely amazing, especially for wolf dogs, because training a wolf dog is like training a cat. They have a mind of their own, so you have to, first of all, the difference, I think, like our dog, our pit bull, she follows us everywhere, she follows you to the bathroom, she just wants to please you. These guys have a complete mind of their own. They need to trust you, they need to be your friend, and they need to know that you're a leader and not a boss. So we don't say we have commands, we have requests, and they kind of do that because they want to, not because we're making them do it. Thor is, again, a teacher. A lot of them will follow him, so we'll take them out with Thor first. Rama is almost off leash. We start out doing recall in an enclosure, in a big enclosure. We call it turnout, it's a big play area. And then we start off on a 30-foot leash going hiking. First a short leash, and we have our language that everybody uses the same language. And then we put them on a 30-foot, and we work with them on a 30-foot. And when we feel like they really got it, because treats are great, they love treats, but they also won't take a treat if they're stressed, if they're nervous, and they don't care. If they see prey, they don't care. The wolf brain kicks in. So working with them for a long time until you feel like it's okay, and then you let go of the leash, but you can still have something to stand on and kind of guide them if you see them looking off over there, like they might, you know, you can go this way. And also utilizing the rest of the pack. So recall has actually come along pretty fast for most of them. He's been with us for over a year now, and he was off leash, well, on a 30-foot let go of the full hike last week, and the week before he was doing it as well. So we're almost ready to take the leash off him. I just got to make sure that they're really connected.
I want to say one more thing about that too, which is that unlike domestic dogs, or at least most domestic dogs, these guys, yeah, they have their two most important values are kind of like ours. Again, trust and respect. And to build a relationship with one of these guys is like building a relationship with another human. It takes time. They don't just accept you right away. So in our volunteer program, they need to show up consistently for a long period of time, usually about 6 months minimum, to truly build a respectful, trusting relationship with one of these guys so that they will listen to them, because if they don't trust or respect them, they will just blow them off. So that's, it's kind of a long process, especially for the team that comes in to help in exercising them and stuff. But this young lady had a question. You know what? No, they don't. We make sure that they can't, because there's so many that we can't save them all. So we're very careful to make sure that they're not too many. Does that make sense? Yeah. Although they're very, very cute. And we have rescued babies from situations, but we've never had babies ourselves. Yes? Do you bite? What would maybe make you want to bite? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you think about every animal on the planet, all of us are gifted with the ability, in one way or another, to protect ourselves when we think we're in trouble, right? So, of course they can bite if they feel scared and they feel like that's what they have to do to protect themselves, which again means we, as their protectors, we have to make sure that they never are put in that position where they feel scared if we can do that for them. So they can bite, we can bite, but we wouldn't do it unless they felt like they absolutely had to. And they have not with us.
Yes. What do they eat? Ooh, good question. That's your department.
Okay. You heard the word eat? Did you hear the word eat? They're really smart. So for us, we feed them, well, tell me, what would you think they would eat in the wild? Meat. They eat meat, right. So we have to give them meat. They might eat vegetables, right? They might eat some grass or some berries to get extra vitamins and nutrients. So we have to make sure that we're giving them everything that they need for their health while they're in captivity. So we give them meat, we give them beef and chicken and sometimes lamb, you know, things that we eat, that they need. And then we add in multivitamins. We use some high quality kibble because kibble adds the carbohydrates for energy, right? And also has extra minerals and vitamins in there for them. And so, you know, we try to make it as well balanced as we can. And we feed them usually one big meal a day, and we'll feed that later in the day because even more important than food for these guys is exercise. So we exercise them first, and we all know the rule that you don't exercise on a full tummy. So we let them rest, you know, we exercise them, we let them rest to catch their breath and calm down, and then they eat, and then they get to go to sleep. I feel like there was somebody up high.
Yes. I'm sorry, can you say that a little louder?
She said, she wants to know, our sanctuary is open to the public because we're small. We do it in a way that is a little more, it's not open like a zoo.
We do private events.
Yeah.
So it's not really open to the public in the sense that you can just show up. You book a private event, and we do it in a way that you have to have a minimum of 6 people, or the cost of 6 people, and a maximum of 12 because we don't want to overwhelm these guys. But it's a very interactive. It's guided by Paula and I. We take you into every enclosure. You meet them all face to face on their terms. And then we hike them. If you do the hike off leash, and then we make you dinner and wine. And you sit around the fire, and you're surrounded by wolves and listening to them howl and stuff like that. So it's a 4 or 5 hour experience. But it's not like just going on a tour in a zoo or something like that. It's like an interactive.
I mean, for us, we have learned over the years that we can show you National Geographic films until the cows come home, and you might actually shed a tear or so, but the minute you get back in your car, you're gonna go, dude, I'm starving, let's go for pizza, right? And through these immersive educational experiences that we provide, people actually leave really understanding who these guys are and becoming advocates for them. So it's a really meaningful, it's meant to be educational and very meaningful as well. So,
But we do free school presentations, so if any of the kids in the schools, we have them contact us. We bring some of the pack, and we have presentations from kindergarten to college with all different, you know, depending on what you're studying, we can kind of gear it to that. Yes?
When it comes to caring for example, different animals exotically in nature require different permits for working with.
Yeah.
If you have 100%, something like that, you have to have different permits for different things. They all classified as wolves or
We have USDA for wolf dogs and California Fish and Wildlife for wolves and coyotes. We're actually getting a coyote next week. So for the full wolves and the coyote, it's Fish and Wildlife, and for the wolf dogs, it's USDA.
you have to like get tested to kind of see which one they fall under. They just trust that either one you're fine no matter what.
Well, for now, yeah, either one we're fine. But when Fish and Wildlife come, they look at the enclosures because all of our enclosures are to their standard. But as far as the animals, they just check on the animals that are under their supervision. So if we call it a wolf, if it is a wolf, we usually DNA test them. Then Fish and Wildlife will be here to see those particular animals. But they're also looking at the entire sanctuary as well to make sure it's, because each enclosure has to be up to their standards. So, and they're both different because technically for USDA, a 6-foot high fence is okay. But an 8-foot with 2-foot overhangs is Fish and Wildlife, and we have to have a perimeter because our property is not completely fenced in. So we have 2 enclosures basically, one around the others.
I love this question. It's so, because wolves learn like we do from their elders. These guys born in captivity that are bred by breeders are usually taken away from their mothers at 3.5 weeks old. So they are not given the opportunity to learn anything from their mother, who was also taken away from her parents at 3.5 weeks old. So they can't be released into the wild because they wouldn't know how to survive. and they become dumpster divers, and they become, you know, maybe what people would consider a nuisance. So that's one reason. The second reason is that it's illegal. And so, unfortunately, if they're born in captivity, they have to remain in captivity their entire lives, which, you know, is why it's so important to us, even with the minimal risk, to allow them to run free, because otherwise they will never have that opportunity, and that's essential for them as a species. So we try to give them that sense of freedom, but no, unfortunately not.
The reason we're taking this coyote actually is they came from a Fish and Wildlife Rehab Center, was actually pulled out of the wild when they keep them wild generally, and they don't have a lot of human interaction, so that they can release them when they're well. This coyote just got very, very into humans and got so habituated to people, which is unusual when this woman who takes care of them does a really good job of keeping them completely wild so they can go back out there. But because she's too human friendly now, they can't release her back into the wild. She's going to get into some danger. She's going to start trying to be around people. So she's going to come to the sanctuary.
We have time for 2 more questions. Yes.
What kinds of enrichment do you give the wolves aside from the hikes and running?
What kind of enrichment?
Yeah.
So part of that is obviously, you know, the exercise is foremost. We also, you know, like you said, we try to give them new friends all the time, so they're not just stuck with the one partner that they have, but, you know, they have different relationships. We do hide and seek, we play nose games. What else do we do?
We take the ones that like to go out,
Yeah.
like we literally take them out. You know, we take them in the car, we take them to a park, we take them to other places. Some of them don't want to go out, so we mix and match them in the turnout, which is a half acre that they can play in. So we're rotating them constantly with each other. Yeah, they have their towers and their things to climb on and play with, but you know, they got a lot of attention all day long. We have volunteers working with them all day, so they get that kind of enrichment. Yes.
In terms of birth control, are you more typically neutering the males or spaying the females?
We do both.
Because not only, you know, not only for the females does it, you know, help in not breeding, but it actually helps prevent certain cancers later in life. So it actually will prolong their life over, you know, the years. So you know, it's for health purposes as well.
Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
We really appreciate being invited here. Thank you so much for listening.